Hey, top tier patrons, you $50 and up people. God damn. Thank you for your support. Today, I'm going to be talking about Cabin in the Woods. That's the movie that you voted for me to watch and review for this month's review for this level. That's right. At the $50 level, I do a movie review, and you all pick the movie. And let me tell you, it was so close between I Know What You Did Last Summer and Cabin in the Woods. And I wanted I Know What You Did Last Summer to win so bad because I haven't seen it in quite some time and I wanted to revisit it. But you have my word that I never manipulate the votes. I'm sorry. I never manipulate the votes to like make it what I want to watch. I always will go with whatever wins. And Cabin in the Woods won. It ended up beating it out. I Know What You Did Last Summer. And all the other suggestions. And, I mean, we all should have seen this coming, right? Cabin in the Woods, dude. I'm not mad about it. I just, like, recently watched it probably a year ago because I was going to do it as a one-off kill count, I think after, like, Scream. Like, I was going to do it real early on, and then I watched through it and was like, I can't kill count. And I still feel like it's an impossible movie to kill count when shit gets crazy. Here, first off, by the way, Cabin in the Woods, if you somehow have not seen this movie, please go see it. Please stop this video right now and go watch it. Don't look anything up. Just watch it completely blind if you're able to do that. If you are, it's an amazing experience, okay? I've seen this movie so many times by now, but I'll always remember that first time in the theater when I watched it. Granted, I saw it a little enhanced, if you will, but my mind was fucking blown for just 90 minutes straight because it just kept taking all these turns that I wasn't expecting, and it was just such a good movie watching experience. And I still, okay, so I saw it that first time, and I loved it, and then a couple of years later, I watched it at a friend's house, and I didn't really like it. And I might have only watched the first half and then left. And I just felt like it wasn't that great. And I was like, what was I thinking? But then I've watched it since a number of times. And it's the opposite. I'm like, what was I thinking that second time? This is great. There are some parts where it's like, I don't know, a little cliche, but it makes sense within the context of the movie. There are so many video essays that I want to make about Cabin in the Woods. And I'm hoping that as the channel continues to grow and hopefully as I employ more people to lift some of the editing work off, that it'll give me a chance to do other videos than the kill counts because I just want to make a video. And I've mentioned this before. I just knocked down a dinosaur. That's fine. Where I explain how Cabin in the Woods is so brilliant because it can literally explain every single horror movie ever made and make them all canon within the same universe. It's so fun that under Cabin in the Woods, a premise and structure, literally all other horror movies can have existed in the same world and just be explained by the stuff going on in Cabin in the Woods, man. It's so cool. And it's funny. It's very funny. Even like I don't normally like stoner characters, but Marty is great. Not all of his lines. Some lines, the Pop-Tart thing, I thought that was dumb. But so many of his lines, what's his name? I want to say Fran Kafka. Is that correct? That sounds like a philosopher. But let me just check real fast because I want to give this guy proper credit. He does such a good job with that role. Also, very interesting, the production behind it. Because Cabin in the Woods, as I read on Wikipedia, so if you frequent that site, this won't be anything interesting to you or new information. But just in case you didn't do that, apparently it was written in 3 days by Drew Goddard and Joss Whedon. And just 3 days to write this? That's insane. I'm sure it went through a bunch of revisions. But it was filmed in 2009. And it's Fran Kranz. Fran Kranz? That sounds like a fake name. But yeah, Fran Kranz. Okay. It was filmed in 2009, but it didn't premiere until 2012. 3 years later, which is crazy. And what's especially crazy about it is that they filmed it in 2009 with Chris Hemsworth, who he had played. He was in the Star Trek reboot at that point. He had been Kirk's father in like the short scene involving that character. But obviously, in between when he filmed it and when the movie came out, he was in this little movie called Thor. And it's so funny that they filmed it with Chris Hemsworth pre-Thor, and then it comes out after he's fucking Thor. And so, like, I'm sure all these Marvel people, like Marvel fanboys, saw this movie and was like, the fuck's Thor doing in here? Like, why is he this character? But he's so funny. He's a very funny guy. He plays this role perfectly. And, I mean, so do all of them, really. The whole cast. Kristen Connolly, who's channeling, to me, it seems like she's channeling Felicia Day. If you had told me that was Felicia Day, I would have been like, yeah, I know. Yeah, Anna Hutchinson and Fran Kranz, and Jesse Williams, that's right. And and then, guys, the team of Richard Jenkins and Bradley Whitford. It should be... I don't think I've kept it a secret that I fucking love Bradley Whitford, but it may not have been as vocalized by me on this channel as much as perhaps, for instance, my love for Jeff Goldblum. But Bradley Whitford is one of my favorite, like, character actors, I guess you would say. And that's coming from someone who's never watched The West Wing. I've never seen that show. I know that's what he's most well known for. What does he play? A guy named Josh, I think? Never seen that show. I think I understand that it's good, apparently. It's probably Sorkin's best, for my understanding, but I've never seen it. But I fucking love Bradley Whitford. And yeah, a lot of that is because of Billy Madison. I'm not ashamed to admit it. But he's also great in this. He's also great in Get Out. And he's great whenever he pops up because he's so... Oh, fucking... Trophy Wife. Oh my God. If you've never seen Trophy Wife, seek that that little one-season wonder out and cry with me that it was canceled far too soon. He's amazing in it with Malin Akerman and a whole great cast. Great cast in that show. But he's fantastic. I fucking love him all the fucking time. He's so cool. I love his Twitter. He's very woke. And he's so good in this. Him and Richard Jenkins start Cabin in the Woods off with that cold open where you don't know what their job is. They're just like regular office workers. And it's just so funny because, especially going into this movie and not knowing anything about it, you're like, what the fuck am I watching? And it's hilarious, that smash cut to title card where he's like, are you even listening to me? And it's just Cabin in the Woods. And it's great. And then it cuts to, is that OK Go doing that song? And, you know, the next scene it's a little stereotypical. I feel like that's where that it kind of lost me on that second viewing because I was watching and I was like, these people are all acting so weird. But it's so explained in the movie because, you know, we're talking about spoilers here. So, again, if you've made it this far without seeing it and you want to see it, go fucking see it because I'm about to talk spoilers. Obviously, the group of kids are being manipulated by this company the entire time. And for weeks prior to this, they've been being manipulated. And it's just part of that video essay I want to make is how this explains why there are all these stereotypical characters in the horror movies we watch. Why they all feature seemingly the same cast of a jockey guy, a slutty girl, a smart dude, an idiot comic relief, and a virgin. And it explains that it needs at least those five, for a ritual in which they are, killed one by one, and their blood is given to the elder gods. It's like an eldritch type thing, and it's Lovecraftian, and I fucking love it so much that it explains why the girl, the slutty girl, is so dumb, because they gave her this hair dye that seeps through her skull and is like making her dumber. And throughout the movie, They're pumping in gases and pheromones to manipulate people's behaviors. And as someone who comes from a very scientific mindset and who studied psychology and behavioral psychology and cognitive and biological psychology in college, I'm well aware with how drugs affect the brain and neurotransmitters and how little things can affect, like, you know, what you're doing and how you're acting and just like influence your decisions. And so it's so fun. It's so fucking fun to see all of those things come together in a way that is like the all the horror movies you've ever seen were planned and produced by people behind screens, pumping in pheromones and controlling the temperatures and just watching people on the camera and sicking these monsters out on them to give sacrifice for the elder gods to save the world. And it's like, it's hard for me to talk about this movie. I'm sorry. I'm just getting so excited. I really do think this is one of the best horror movies. This is one of the best horror movies ever made. It's phenomenal. It's so good. It's game changing. It's so smart. It doesn't let up ever. It's so funny, and I just love that it explains all horror movies, dude. Because, and like, I'm not even a huge Joss Whedon fan. He's okay. I liked Firefly when I watched it in college. I can't imagine really loving it now if I watched it again. I don't like Buffy. Sorry, Jackson, if you're watching this. I don't like Buffy. It's way too 90s for me. I like Dr. Horrible. Did he do Castle? I never watched that. I don't know. He's not really my style. Chelsea's not a big fan, so that kind of influences my understanding of him. Like, Avengers is okay. I kind of liked Avengers, and I don't really like Marvel movies. I liked Avengers enough, but sometimes his script and the way the characters talk can be very grating and seem unrealistic. But here, I really liked it, dude. And so this isn't like a Joss Whedon fanboy coming in and saying, yo, this is one of the best horror. I just think it's so fucking smart with everything that it does. And I love the way that the office workers who are doing this all, you know, led by Bradley Whitford and Richard Jenkins, how they're like, it's such a boring office job to them. They're taking bets on who will win. All the different departments are taking bets on the different monsters that'll get summoned, which is a hilarious visual gag. And I remember, it's so funny because now, you know, I have the Blu-ray, I'm watching it on my computer, I'm scrubbing through the movie back and forth frame by frame. I can pause it at the whiteboard and just like read through it. I remember when it first came out, people were posting these low-res screen caps of the whiteboard and trying to decipher what it said and trying to figure out what was on it, and like, who the fuck's Kevin? What's Kevin? That's hilarious. And it's so funny that now it's just like the matter of hitting spacebar and being like, oh yeah, that was very clear to read. But I remember when this came out, there were like very low res screen caps posted online of like all the different things. And yeah, I just love that it's like this homage to horror in general. Evil Dead specifically, the whiteboard includes both Angry Molesting Tree, which is obviously a reference to that first Evil Dead, and Deadites, which is the name of the evil possessed people in the Evil Dead series. And like, I mean, the way the cabin is shot when they roll up to it, that's the Evil Dead cabin. They open the door to the cellar below the floor, and that's Evil Dead. But it's not just Evil Dead, because they go down there and there's all those trinkets and toys for them to play with. And my favorite homage is definitely the Hellraiser one. It's like, you know, it's a lament configuration, but it's like a ball form. And later you see the monster with which that corresponds, and it's like, instead of Pinhead, it's like Buzzsaw head. He has like buzzsaws, but he looks like Pinhead. He's bald, and he just has the big black eyes, like staring all very serene and calm, and he looks like he's in like BDSM gear. And like, I just love that shit. I love the fucking Harbinger, you know, Mordecai, the creepy guy at the gas station who they run into. And it's like, I love how it's explained how it's a chance for them to turn back, but they have to make the decision, the free will, to keep pressing forward despite how creepy and ominous that dude is. And like, he calls what's her name? I didn't catch the character's name. Shit, even though I've seen it so many times. Anna Hutchison. He calls her like that slut, or that whore, which that's like her character archetype. And I really love, oh man, I'm sorry, I'm gushing over this movie. I love that you get the explanation that that's not how these characters are. That's not how these people normally are. And they are only manipulated into being this way thanks to the efforts of the people sitting at the desks behind the monitors. So especially, it's great having Marty as a audience surrogate, being able to call shit out, because I guess his weed like protects him against the shit that they're doing. Very funny. He's like calling shit out because as the movie continues, Chris Hemsworth gets like jockier and jockier. Like in the beginning, he's wearing like a nice Henley, I think, and then later on, after they get to the cabin, he's like he has his varsity jacket on, and he's putting back shots, and he's like, "Oh, bro, babe," and oh, you know what? My battery is blinking there, but ooh, we'll keep going until it runs out. We'll keep going. I don't want to stop this. Yeah, he just gets more and more jockey and calling his friend like egghead. And Marty's like, why is he doing that? He's a sociology major. He's not like this. He's a smart guy. And same thing with Anna Hutchinson, who is she just dyed her hair blonde, and she's not normally like that. And when she's like dancing all sexily and making out with that wolf head, which is a scene where like you could read it as, why is this like being sexually it's very, you know, male gazy on her character, which it is, but it's also explained as like this isn't how she normally acts. And so the other characters are also taken aback by it, and they're like, who is this? What is she doing? It's done, I think, supposedly done in an ironic way, and you can argue whether or not it succeeds in that fashion, but I found it interesting how much it mirrored the Friday the 13th reboot, which did that in a very straightforward way, and that came out in 2009, so that would have been when they were shooting it. But even if they weren't aware of that movie, I don't know if it came out before, like earlier or later in the year when they were shooting it. But it's funny, it has such a good sense of what horror movies are that it looks exactly like that scene, like where Larry and or Lawrence and Chewie are like sitting there watching around the couch. I love it. I love how much this movie knows horror movies. I love all the creatures, all those creatures that come in at the end. Phenomenal sequence, unforgettable sequence. All that makeup and effects work and prosthetics and special effects were done by Heather Langenkamp and her husband and their company, because Heather Langenkamp, Nancy Thompson from the Nightmare on Elm Street series, that's what she does. She does like horror makeup, which I think is super cool, because I've said it before, I think on the channel, how like she's not the best actor. It doesn't matter because it's Nightmare on Elm Street. It's a horror movie. You don't need to have like Oscar caliber acting. She's not the best actor, but she's such a nice, genuine person that it shines through on the camera, and it doesn't matter that she's like not acting, because you love her anyway, because she's Nancy Thompson, and she just seems so sincere and pure that she doesn't need to be a good actor. But I like that, you know, she found something else that she was interested in and good at, and does like horror movie makeup. I fucking love that. And she was a part of this movie, which again, I'll fucking repeat, dude, is one of the best horror movies. I feel like it's just changed the game on being meta and being funny, and all the different creatures at the end are so fun to like look at and see who's there, whether it's the murderous clowns or the best is, of course, the merman who kills Bradley Whitford after he spent the whole movie like talking about how he wishes it were merman. And that's one of my favorite things. It's also that takes place during like when they're celebrating, because they think that everything finally went to plan and that only the final girl, the virgin, is left alive. And, you know, we get another audience surrogate in the security guard who's there, who is new, and so he has to question everything and learn things, which is, it's fine. It's a good way for us to hear that information. But he's like, why are you guys all celebrating? She's still alive. And you find out that the virgin's death, the final girl's death, is optional. It doesn't need to happen. And again, that explains why in so many horror movies she doesn't die. She just has to suffer. That's the only thing that they say is necessary for the system to work. And it's a very funny moment when Bradley Whitford is like, it's that pushing on his face as he's talking about Kristen Connolly and talking about how like she's got so much drive. I really care for her, and I'm really rooting for this girl. And then he like looks over and he's like, "Tequila's my lady," and so that's a very funny moment. But then the rest of that scene is the only part of this movie that kind of rubs me the wrong way. Is it just seems so mean, but I mean, I guess that's the point of it, is the purpose of it, because you hear the party's music as you watch her getting just the shit beaten out of her by the zombie redneck, the Buckner monster who like found her at the dock and is just beating the shit out of her, and it's just so mean. But I guess it drives home just like how bored these people are, and how, you know, I guess it's uncomfortable, but I think it works just because of the vignettes they show at that party that just really stress the point of like, these are just people at a regular job for them, and the reason they don't care is because this is their everyday. They're just bored by this at work. This isn't anything out of the ordinary for them. And the little vignettes I'm thinking about are like when Bradley Whitford is saying like, it's so funny because you have like this young girl being like, "You're so cool. I love what you do." And he's like, "Thank you. I just can't help think it would have been cooler with a merman." And then like the intern is talking about how he doesn't get OT, and there's like the guy who bought ballet tickets for one of his coworkers, but she's not into it. And I think that with those vignettes and with those scenes, I think it works. I think that works. And then, of course, it gets cut short by the red phone ringing and the discovery that Marty the Fool has survived, and he's out there rescuing his sister, the Virgin. And that's the other thing, is like, it's a virgin for the sacrifice and for the whole system to work. And I love that, like, they don't try to say that this chick is a virgin. They're like, we work with what we have. And earlier she even says, due to the influence on her, she's like, "It's my first time." No, it's not. Why would I say that? And like, it's so funny that it just explains all these movies, because, you know, there are plenty of horror movies where you watch and the main character is like a virgin, and you're like, is she really? Would she really be? Like, the only one I believe is like, I mean, I guess Sydney, but like, I was gonna say Nancy Thompson. I believe that she like was a good virgin girl, but I guess Sydney too. I mean, Sydney had her mom go through that shit. That'll probably stunt your libido, huh? Right? Yeah. Okay. I just love this movie. I love that fucking Ripley shows up at the end, dude. Yeah, Sigourney Weaver popping out as the director. That's a nice little nod to her work in the genre. And then the best thing is how the end, they just fucking like they fucking do it, dude. They destroy the world. They decide to be selfish and survive to see the morning and end the world. And it's a funny like final conversation between the two of them where it's like, "Sorry I was gonna shoot you. Sorry I was gonna let a werewolf kill you and then end the world." And she's like, "No, you're right. Humanity." And then they're just like smoking together, and then like a giant horrific elder god's arm like pops out of the ground and comes at the camera, and it's like, cool, the world just ended. How many movies end with the end of the world? It's so funny because I just always think back to that first time I saw this movie, where I went in without knowing a single thing about it, and they give you little hints early. There's the guy on the roof who's like, the nest is empty, and like, you know, shit, like the force field after the RV goes through the tunnel and the bird flies into the force field. There's little hints like that, but you can't possibly begin to figure out the scale of it. And even after you see that the dudes are manipulating all the things going on, and they're talking about like their bosses and how the system has to work, and you see that it's also in the other countries. I love that in Japan, it's like a J-horror ghost thing that gets defeated by like the 9-year-old schoolgirls chanting a song of friendship, and it turns into a frog. And then Richard Jenkins is at the monitor. Fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. It's so fucking funny. Those two, God, Richard Jenkins and Bradley Whitford are phenomenal in this movie. They're like side-splitting hilarious. I love it. But as you're watching it for the first time, you don't piece together, at least I didn't, that like the stakes are like the world. And it just keeps taking all these different turns and building, and they get down in there in the elevator and they start to see all the other monsters, and you're like, oh, what's the scale of this thing? And it pulls back and you see them all in their cubes, and then of course they're all released. I don't know why that system purge button exists. Seems to me like it shouldn't, but whatever, there you go. And they all come out and they're killing everything, and then just like the stakes keep rising and rising, and then they fucking are like, how do we end it? Just have the world end. It's great. I love it, guys. I don't know if there's anything else I can talk about. I mean, there are. I could talk about this forever, but I've got to get to watching Predators and also Truth or Dare, because we're covering that on the podcast. So phenomenal movie. I hope you've watched it if you're listening this far. And again, I can't not say it's one of the best horror movies and one of the most unique movies. And it's it's a nice like around 90 minutes. It's short. It's fast. It's quick. It's funny. It's it's got some decent scares to it, but that's not even my concern. It wanted to be a meta commentary on horror movies that's funny and unique, and that's exactly what it was, and I fucking love it. I love that movie. So, I was disappointed that it wasn't I Know What You Did Last Summer, because I could probably sit here and talk shit about that movie for a half hour, but I'm glad that you made me watch it and like remind myself that no matter how many times I've seen it, I love Cabin in the Woods, man. It's so good. So thank you for that. Thank you for being a patron, especially at that top tier. It's the most help to me, obviously. You're phenomenal. You're wonderful people, and we'll do that reward that I set out on Patreon, the all-day like live stream thing. We'll do that sometime in August. I'll set that up soon, and I'll make an announcement for all patrons because they all deserve that. We all learned it together, but especially you guys. Am I right? Thanks, everyone. I'll see you next month for whatever movie you pick. And again, thank you so much for being a patron and supporting the channel. All right. Bye, everybody.